Welcome, dear listeners, to another spine-chilling episode of our scary stories. I'm your host, drawing back the curtain of the everyday to peer into the shadows where our deepest fears lurk. Prepare to venture into the icy heart of Antarctica tonight. Here, within the frosty silence of its desolation, an ancient horror stirs. This isn't a tale for the faint-hearted, dear listeners, as we are about to journey through a chilling nightmare. Lock your doors, dim your lights, and let the icy winds of terror creep into your room as we begin our tale, Frostbite. The Antarctic Research Station, a stark metal fortress rising against the stark polar landscape, stood isolated, an island in a sea of shimmering white. Surrounded by the endless, unbroken expanse of ice, the wind screamed its mournful song, whipping snowflakes into a frenzied dance. The Antarctic sun, a mere shadow of its equatorial cousin, cast long, spectral shadows that crept slowly over the icy desert. The vast emptiness hummed with an ancient silence, broken only by the howling gales and the ominous creaking of the glaciers. Inside the station, the raw wilderness was tamed into a steady hum of electricity, the sterile scent of technology, and the subdued colors of utilitarian design. Dr. Victor Adler, with spectacles perched precariously on his thin nose, carefully adjusted a complicated array of instruments. His fingers, long and slim, danced over the controls with a graceful precision honed by years of meticulous work. His stern face, usually set in an expression of intense focus, was more drawn than usual, the strain of their environment already etching itself into his features. Across the room, Dr. Martin Monroe's laugh echoed in stark contrast to the hushed reverence of the machines. His hands, thick and calloused from years of field work, clapped jovially on the shoulder of their guide, a man known only as Morrison. Morrison, with his icy blue eyes reflecting the untamed spirit of the wilderness outside, gave a smirk that didn't quite reach his gaze, his rugged exterior masking the silent, ever-watchful observer within. In the corner, almost swallowed by the shadows, Dr. Helena Luna observed the scene, her expression unreadable. Her gaze, a dark mirror of the Antarctic night, held a mix of anticipation and dread that even she didn't fully understand. Her hands wrapped tightly around a warm cup were the only outward sign of her internal storm. Their mission was routine, as mundane as anything could be in this harsh wasteland. Drilling through layers of ice, they were to retrieve samples, hoping to find clues about Earth's climatic past. Yet, as their drill hit an obstruction, Adler's usual calm shattered like thin ice under heavy boots. No geological formation could do this, he muttered, peering at the monitor showing the sonar readings. Luna, Monroe, and Morrison crowded around him, their breath mingling in the frigid air as they glimpsed the outline of something embedded deep within the ice. Monroe let out a low whistle. "It's like nothing I've ever seen, Vic. The lines, they seem almost intentional, don't they?" His excitement echoed off the steel walls, resonating oddly with the winds wailing outside. Morrison, his gaze as hard as the ice that entrapped their enigma, spoke for the first time since their discovery, his voice cutting through Monroe's enthusiasm. "We should tread carefully. This ice, it's kept its secret for a millennia." His warning, unheeded in the face of scientific curiosity, hung in the cold air, a ghost of foreboding in the sterile confines of the research station. As the Antarctic night claimed the land, the research station was filled with anticipation and unease. The crew was oblivious to the silent whispering of the ice around them, a chill running down the station's spine as they unwittingly began their dance with the ancient terror beneath their feet. The Arctic sun once more ascended the sky in a display of frosty hues, yet its pallid light seemed to be swallowed by the ice, adding an otherworldly luminescence to the frozen plains. The ethereal quiet of the Antarctic dawn was split by the metallic groan of the research station, a begrudging acknowledgement of another day's work. Dr. Helena Luna was the first to rise, her dreams disturbed by visions too vivid to be merely the products of an overactive mind. In her dreams, she walked through a primeval wilderness populated by monstrous beasts, their roars shaking her very soul, their eyes reflecting an ancient wisdom that far predated humankind. Waking up in her cot, her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs, and her breaths came in short, icy gasps that hung in the frigid air. As she sat in the common area nursing a steaming cup of coffee, the aroma failed to bring its usual comfort. Instead, her senses felt heightened, her skin prickling with an intangible energy that seemed to vibrate through the station. Her eyes, flitting anxiously, sought solace in the familiar surroundings, yet found none. Dr. Victor Adler entered, his usual composed demeanor marred by the furrowed brow. and the twitching of his fingers. As he poured his coffee, Luna watched the tremors in his hand, the dark liquid trembling in the cup. He took a seat opposite her, and for a moment they sat in silence, two figures isolated in a land of snow and ice. Finally, he spoke, his voice hoarse. "I had the strangest dream." Dr. Martin Monroe joined them, his usually vibrant eyes subdued and clouded. His laugh, which used to ring out through the station, was now replaced by a contemplative silence. Morrison trailed in last. His silence, as constant as the ice around them, felt unusually heavy. His gaze, usually as sharp as shards of ice, seemed distant and unfocused. As they shared their experiences, it became apparent that their dreams were not merely coincidental. Each dream was filled with visions of a prehistoric world, inhabited by ancient, monstrous beasts, landscapes in perpetual winter, and a chilling presence that seemed to permeate everything. Adler, ever the scientist, dismissed the shared experiences as the effects of isolation and stress. "Our minds are trying to make sense of the discovery, projecting fears into our subconscious," he explained, his rationality a lifebuoy in the sea of uncertainty. Monroe, though, found fascination in their shared terror. He began to document the dreams, his excitement growing with each terrifying revelation. His voice echoed through the station, a stark contrast against the subdued murmur of the machinery. "Imagine if we've tapped into something more than just ice." Meanwhile, Luna withdrew further into her shell, her eyes frequently straying towards the icy expanse outside, as though she expected the monstrous visions to come alive any moment. Morrison, the quiet observer, seemed to be on high alert. He moved as though the ground beneath him was thin ice, ready to crack at the slightest provocation. Throughout the day, a sense of unease seeped into their interactions, turning their banter into curt exchanges, and casting long, ominous shadows of doubt and fear across the station. The Antarctic ice, the silent witness to their growing terror, offered no comfort. Instead, it breathed an invisible chill into their hearts, whispering of ancient horrors that were yet to awaken. The frozen desolation of Antarctica cast an icy veil over the world. The polar dawn broke with a subtle radiance, a cool, serene light that was deceptive in its serenity. The research station, nestled within its cold embrace, buzzed with an uncharacteristic energy that day. Inside, the crew worked with the rhythm of routine, their movements mechanical against the backdrop of science. However, the harmony of the day was shattered when an irregularity surfaced. Their equipment began to malfunction. Dr. Victor Adler, hunched over his instruments, squinted at the readings. His usual calm demeanor faltered as the sonar system echoed back an unfamiliar pattern. A constant low hum, more of a feeling than a sound, seemed to resonate from the ice and into their equipment. It was an eerie, monotonous drone that had an almost haunting quality to it. Next to him, Dr. Martin Monroe was at a loss. His expertise in field geology seemed insignificant in the face of their predicament. He ran his fingers through his hair, tugging at the roots. His eyes widened in disbelief. It's like the ice is talking to us," he muttered, the strange thought lingering in the air. Dr. Helena Luna, withdrawn to the corner, watched the unfolding chaos with wide eyes. She clutched at her notepad, her knuckles turning white. The sensation of fear, of unknown variables at play, was gnawing at her sanity. The humming she felt seemed eerily reminiscent of the chilling presence in her dreams. Their guide, Morrison, stood by the entrance, his frostbitten fingers playing absent-mindedly with the radio dial. His gaze was on the infinite white beyond the station, but his ears focused on the haunting hum. He felt a shiver travel down his spine, a feeling he wasn't unfamiliar with in this hostile terrain. But this was different, a chill that seemed to penetrate right into his core. In a haunting realization, Luna made the connection. Her voice, although barely a whisper, cut through the tense silence. The hum, it's the same frequency as our nightmares, she stammered, the implications of her observation rippling through the room. Monroe's previously dismissed theory took on a dreadful significance. Adler, trying to maintain a grip on rationality, was visibly shaken. His glasses slipped down his nose as he paced nervously, his voice barely audible. That's impossible. It's just stress, and our minds are drawing non-existent parallels. Yet, deep down, they all felt the truth of Luna's words. The echoes from the deep were not just in their instruments, but in their nightmares, in the very marrow of their bones. The discovery they'd hoped would illuminate the past had instead cast them into the shadow of an ancient horror. And amidst the scientific chaos, the icy wilderness outside remained unchanged, its secrets whispered only to those who dared listen. Antarctica, the frozen frontier, presented a canvas of tranquil desolation under the ghostly glow of the southern stars. The research station, in stark contrast, hummed with the nervous energy of human activity. Each member of the crew, haunted by the strange humming and their shared nightmares, were caught in a maelstrom of speculation and fear. Inside the metallic walls of the station, Dr. Martin Monroe wrestled with the enigma. His brow furrowed as he analyzed the patterns of light and sound their equipment was relaying. Strange, spectral illuminations pulsed from the monitors, mirroring the low drone that seemed to fill every crevice of the station. Next to him, Dr. Victor Adler sat in silent contemplation. His logical mind was caught in a relentless battle against the mounting pile of irrational evidence. His eyes, hidden behind the glare on his glasses, were fixated on the strange readings their instruments continued to churn out. Across the room, Morrison sat in quiet isolation, his icy gaze focused on the swirling snowstorm outside the small window. His intuition, a reliable compass in this harsh wilderness, was screaming warnings he dared not voice out loud. Lost in her own thoughts, Dr. Helena Luna quietly sketched. Her hand moved across the paper, guided by the chilling visions from her nightmares. As her pencil traced the sinewy shapes of monstrous beasts and alien landscapes, she was filled with a foreboding dread. The ice, their silent and formidable companion, began to display an unsettling phenomenon. It seemed to be responding to the instrument's probing. A soft, eerie luminescence danced beneath its surface, illuminating the otherworldly shape embedded deep within. Subtle vibrations echoed through the structure of the station, a chilling response to their intrusive examination. Adler broke the oppressive silence, his voice mirroring his confusion. "It's almost as if the ice is reacting to our presence," he admitted, his statement hanging in the frigid air. His admission, a departure from his typical rationality, amplified the fear creeping into their hearts. Monroe, his enthusiasm dwindling, echoed Adler's observation. "And these lights, these vibrations, it's as if we're stirring something ancient." Morrison, his silent vigil unbroken, nodded in agreement. His eyes, reflecting the glowing ice, bore a haunted look. Luna, her sketch completed, stared at the haunting image. Her hand trembled, the pencil dropping to the floor with an echo that seemed deafening in the silent room. As the Antarctic night reclaimed the frozen expanse, the crew, bound by a terror they didn't fully comprehend, found themselves on the threshold of an ancient mystery. Little did they know, their probe for knowledge had disturbed a timeless slumber, and the ice, their silent spectator, was beginning to wake. Underneath the star-strewn Antarctic sky, the research station cowered in the face of the relentless polar winds. The icy world outside seemed untamed and primeval, holding its breath as though waiting for an ancient prophecy to unfold. Inside the metallic heart of the station, the atmosphere was heavy with anticipation and dread. The humming, once a subtle whisper in their ears, had grown to an unsettling chorus that echoed in their nightmares and thoughts. An unseen force appeared to be gnawing at the very fabric of their sanity. Dr. Victor Adler, once a beacon of steadfast rationality, was now a silhouette of uncertainty. His gaunt face betrayed sleepless nights spent wrestling with their confounding discovery. His eyes, usually hidden behind a scholarly veil, now bore the raw edge of fear. As the humming resonated through the station, he felt an icy shiver creep down his spine. Dr. Martin Monroe, his robust demeanor now tempered by the ongoing phenomena, was hunched over his notes. His once lively eyes flickered with the eerie luminescence of the ice, the recorded nightmares staring back at him from the pages. He could almost hear the primeval roars and feel the chill of the eternal winter they had seen in their dreams. Dr. Helena Luna sat quietly, her sketch of the monstrous visions a stark testament to their shared terror. Her hands, usually steady and precise, trembled as she tried to make sense of the unfolding chaos. The connection between their dreams, the humming, and the reactions of the ice was a puzzle that terrified her more with each piece she put together. Morrison, the hardened outdoorsman, was not immune to the mounting fear. His silence, usually a testament to his resilience, now echoed with unspoken terror. He felt the ice around them, once an indifferent adversary, taking on a sinister persona. It was as though the very elements were warning them of a lurking horror. As the nightmares became more vivid, the beastly creatures and harsh landscapes of an eternal winter took a horrifyingly clear form. The dreams, once a mere whisper of terror, were now a deafening roar of primal horror that seemed to resonate with the humming of the ice. With every passing moment, the ice around them appeared more alive, more aware. Their efforts to decipher the alien symbols etched in the ice around their enigmatic discovery only added to their growing horror. The symbols, echoing the dread of their nightmares, started making an ominous sense. With every heartbeat, they found themselves slipping further into a chasm of fear. The once exciting expedition had turned into a descent into madness. As the Antarctic night wrapped its icy tendrils around the research station, the crew found themselves on a precipice overlooking an abyss of ancient horrors that was awakening beneath their feet. The Antarctic landscape, a timeless tableau of icy splendor, silently bore witness to another sunless day. The research station, a testament to human curiosity, clung to its existence in this alien world, a single heartbeat in a land frozen in time. Within the metallic shell of the station, the line between reality and nightmare was becoming unsettlingly blurred. The strange hum emanating from the ice was an ever-present reminder of the terror that lurked beneath their feet. Dr. Helena Luna, her face etched with fatigue, stared at the monitor. The patterns of light and sound that their instruments were recording from the embedded object had taken an alarming turn. The entity within the ice was no longer a mere anomaly. It was the heart of a nightmare that pulsed in rhythm with their fear. Dr. Martin Monroe, his jovial personality buried under the weight of the situation, was engrossed in his notes. His descriptions of their shared dreams, previously scribbled with an excited hand, were now etched with an unmistakable dread. The nightmares were taking on a life of their own, filling their waking hours with the haunting echoes of primeval beasts and icy wildernesses. Their guide, Morrison, his wilderness instincts screaming warnings, had taken to patrolling the station. His icy blue eyes held a hard edge, his muscles were taut with readiness, and his every movement echoed with the strain of his unsaid fears. Dr. Victor Adler, his faith in reason shaken, found himself questioning the principles he had held sacred. The findings were impossible to ignore. The ice was alive, in ways they had not thought possible. It held captive an ancient entity that seemed desperate to break free. As they probed deeper into their analysis, a breakthrough occurred. Monroe, his hand shaking as he pointed at a series of alien symbols on the monitor, found his voice. It's a warning of a malevolent force sealed within the ice. The realization sent a chill through the room that had nothing to do with the Antarctic cold. Luna, her eyes wide with dread, felt her pulse quicken. Adler, his face as pale as the snow outside, stared at the symbols in shocked silence. Morrison, his instincts proven right, gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. The entity within the ice seemed to react to their discovery. Its influence began to manifest within the station's systems. Lights flickered in time with the hum, machinery malfunctioned, and an otherworldly chill seemed to seep from the walls. The sterile confines of their scientific endeavor had become the hunting ground of an unearthly predator. As the Antarctic darkness claimed the world outside, the crew of the research station found themselves trapped in a waking nightmare. The once silent ice was whispering its deadly secrets, and they had opened the door to an ancient horror that was eager to be set free. The Antarctic night fell like a veil of oblivion, the desolate beauty of the frozen landscape shrouded in an icy darkness. The research station, a single, defiant speck of warmth in the cold expanse, stood on the precipice of an ancient nightmare. Inside, the air was thick with trepidation. The omnipresent hum, now a sinister song from the depths, added an eerie note to the claustrophobic confines of the station. The crew, trapped within this metallic womb, navigated a sea of terror that pulsed with the rhythm of their shared nightmares. Morrison, the hardened wilderness guide, was the first to break. His calm exterior cracked, revealing the raw fear that had been simmering beneath the surface. The echoes from the deep, the horrifying visions, and the sinister influence of the entity gnawed at his sanity. "We're blind fools, playing with forces we cannot comprehend," he growled, his voice reverberating ominously in the enclosed space. His fear, left unchecked, spiraled into paranoia. He saw danger in every flickering light, every malfunctioning piece of machinery. He perceived the bone-chilling cold seeping into the station as the entity tightening its grip, ready to drag them into its icy abyss. In a desperate attempt to regain control, he plotted to sabotage the station, hoping to cut off the entity's influence. He believed that shutting down their probing instruments would seal the beast back into its icy prison. As he crept through the station, his usually steady hands trembled as he began disabling critical systems, plunging the station into darkness. The crew, caught off guard by the sudden blackout, stumbled through the shadows. Monroe, Adler, and Luna found Morrison in the control room, his hands tangled in a web of cables and wires. "I'm saving us," he spat, his eyes wild with terror. His actions led to a heated confrontation. Adler, trying to reason with him, found his scientific arguments falling on deaf ears. Luna, her dark eyes reflecting fear, tried to coax him away from his destructive path. Monroe, his earlier joviality completely eclipsed, lunged at Morrison in a desperate bid to stop him. The confrontation ended violently, with Morrison fatally injured. His life bled away into the Antarctic night, his final words a chilling warning echoing in the darkness. "It's awake, and it's hungry." The icy silence that followed was a solemn testament to their lost comrade, and a grim herald of the horrors yet to come. The research station, its heart plunged into darkness, echoed the primal fear of its remaining inhabitants. Outside, the Antarctic ice continued its timeless vigil, its deadly secret now free to hunt in the realm of men. In the never-ending Antarctic night, the research station sat shrouded in darkness, the dim stars overhead casting a muted glow on its silent form. Inside, the grim shadow of loss loomed over the crew, painting their faces with despair and fear. The entity, once a silent prisoner within the ice, had been stirred from its ageless slumber. In the midst of their grief and shock, the crew didn't notice the growing resonance in the hum, didn't realize the entity was claiming control over the station. As the hum grew in intensity, so did the visions of ancient horrors, now penetrating their waking thoughts. The ice outside seemed to pulse in tandem, a living heartbeat buried beneath layers of frost and time. Their former fortress against the harsh elements had been breached, the enemy within the walls. In a twist of cruel irony, their attempts to secure the station after Morrison's sabotage unintentionally strengthened the entity's influence. Dr. Victor Adler, in his panicked efforts to restore power, inadvertently intensified the entity's connection to the station's systems. A shockwave of energy, centered on the entombed beast, rippled through the ice, resonating within their very souls. Dr. Martin Monroe, his mind consumed by the echoes of their shared terror, stumbled through the station. He could see the landscapes of eternal winter, feel the presence of the monstrous beasts, and hear the low growl of an ancient predator. His once beloved sanctuary of science had transformed into a grotesque stage where nightmares were brought to life. Dr. Helena Luna, her inner storm raging, was caught in the growing maelstrom. The chilling sensations, the vivid horrors playing out before her eyes, pushed her towards an abyss of madness. The station, now a chilling battleground, twisted and turned under the influence of the entity. Hallways seemed to stretch into infinity, rooms shifted and blurred, and an icy chill seeped from the walls, a tangible echo of the beast beneath the ice. The crew found themselves wrestling with their worst fears made real. The horrifying creatures from their dreams stalked them through the station, their roars echoing in the narrow corridors. A feeling of imminent dread, a predatory anticipation, clawed at their sanity. The entity was awake, and it was hunting. As the Antarctic wind howled in futile protest, the entity reveled in its newfound freedom. The research station, once a symbol of human curiosity, was now a puppet in the hands of an ancient horror. The crew, entangled in a chilling dance with the entity, were desperate to regain control, their hope flickering like a lone candle in the endless Antarctic night. The Antarctic sky, draped in its star-embroidered cloak, held a cold vigil over the besieged research station. Inside, the remaining crew fought a desperate battle against the awakened entity, their sanctuary now a chilling labyrinth of fear. In the swirling maelstrom of terror, Dr. Helena Luna found a spark of courage. This quiet, reserved woman, who had quietly observed from the sidelines, stepped forward to face the ancient horror head-on. She returned to their original research, the deciphered symbols their only beacon in the storm of chaos. While the entity wove a horrific tapestry of prehistoric beasts and icy wastelands around her, Luna's focus remained unwavering. Her fingers traced the alien patterns, her mind danced around the scientific riddles, her pulse hammered a resolute rhythm against the entity's haunting song. Meanwhile, Dr. Victor Adler and Dr. Martin Monroe found themselves caught in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Their scientific haven, now warped by the entity's influence, became a perilous battleground. Every shadow held a monstrous vision, every whisper of wind carried a chilling threat, every hum vibrated with malevolence. In a breakthrough moment, Luna deciphered a critical detail in the symbols, a means to banish the entity. The realization dawned like the Antarctic sun after a long, dark winter, a beacon of hope amidst the chilling chaos. Their only chance lay in a dangerous gambit, a power play that pitted their humanity against the ancient entity's malevolence. Luna relayed her plan to Adler and Monroe, her voice carrying a conviction that defied her usual reserved nature. They needed to overload the station's systems. The ensuing power surge, if timed perfectly, would sever the entity's connection and force it back into the ice. Each movement, each decision, now carried the weight of survival. The station's hum was a sinister countdown, the entity's influence a chilling reminder of the consequences of failure. In the frozen heart of Antarctica, the research station pulsed with an ominous rhythm. Luna, her eyes alight with fierce determination, began to implement her daring plan. The others, their courage fueled by her resolve, readied themselves for the final confrontation. As the Arctic winds howled outside, an even greater storm was brewing within the station's walls, the stage set for a battle against an ancient, icy terror. As the Antarctic night clung desperately to the land, the research station held its breath in anticipation. A hum, now a pulsating heartbeat of terror, echoed ominously within its walls, underscoring the climax that was about to unfold. Within, Luna began the final phase of her plan, her hands moving over the instruments with a deft confidence. Dr. Victor Adler and Dr. Martin Monroe stood ready, their faces reflecting the harsh reality of their predicament. Their survival hinged on Luna's ability to outmaneuver the entity that was only moments away from breaking free. The station seemed to shudder in response, the hum intensifying, and the nightmarish visions pushing at the edges of their sanity. Luna's voice, a steady anchor amidst the storm, counted down the final moments. 3.2.1. With her last word, she initiated the power surge. The station, its metal frame creaking in protest, sparked into a frenzy of activity. Lights flickered, machinery groaned, and a wave of intense energy rippled through the structure. In response, the entity unleashed a chilling roar that echoed in their bones. Its nightmarish visions, once confined to their dreams, materialized before their eyes. The monstrous creatures of their nightmares roared in the confined space. The eternal winter's frosty breath blew through the corridors, and the primal fear gripped their hearts. Yet Luna stood her ground, her focus unwavering. Her hands moved across the control panel, her every movement a dance with death. As the entity struggled against her effort, she whispered a final, defiant phrase in the ancient language of the symbols. "Return to the ice." Her words hung in the air, the station fell eerily silent, and for a moment, time itself seemed to freeze. Then, a forceful energy wave erupted from the core of the station. The entity, caught off guard, was forcefully severed from the station's systems and banished back into the icy abyss. The victory, however, came at a cost. The power surge proved too much for Luna. Her body, overcome by the exertion, gave out, and she collapsed onto the cold floor, her life extinguishing amidst the flickering lights. The remaining survivors, Adler and Monroe, found themselves alone in the silence of the aftermath. The station, once a bustling hub of human curiosity, was now a silent monument to their fallen comrades. As the Antarctic dawn broke over the horizon, the two survivors left the station, their hearts heavy with loss, their minds scarred by their encounter with the ancient horror. Beneath them, the entity lay dormant once again, silently waiting in its icy prison. Their ordeal was over, but the memory of the terrifying entity beneath the Antarctic ice would forever echo in the frosty expanse, a chilling reminder of the ancient horror that once stirred within its icy depths. And so, dear listeners, we leave the Antarctic wilderness behind, its icy plains holding secrets beyond our darkest nightmares. We've journeyed through fear, witnessed the power of the human spirit, and brushed against an entity that time itself had forgotten. Remember, the darkness isn't always empty, and the echoes of Frostbite will linger, a chilling reminder of the terror that lurks beneath the surface. Thank you for joining us in our scary stories. Until next time, when we reveal another tale from the shadows. Sleep tight, listeners. Keep your ears open, your eyes wide, and your lights dimmed. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.